Hey loves, Tony here with another fun crochet pattern. If you're looking for the perfect beginner-friendly project to brighten up your home or to gift to someone special, try my new Hexi Puff Coasters. These cheerful coasters work up fast and are a great way to use up a bit of your yarn stash. As you work on your coasters, I strongly encourage you to follow along with the free Hexi Puff Coaster pattern on my blog, TLYCblog.com. You can also find a one-page printer-friendly version of the pattern on TLYarncrafts.com and Ravelry. Links to all of these resources are in the description below. To make my Hexi Puff coasters, I use a new-to-me yarn called Cotton from my friends at We Crochet. Cotton is a lovely mix of cotton and linen. It's soft, strong, and comes in an array of beautiful colors. You only need about 50 yards of this yarn to make a coaster, so you can get 2 coasters out of each ball with a little left over. For my coasters, I use the colors Harbor, Conch, Flamingo, Sagebrush, Mustard Seed, and Lichen. In addition to your yarn, you'll also need a 5mm crochet hook, a pair of scissors, and a tapestry needle. Now let's get started. Our Hexi Puff coasters start with a magic loop. Here's how I do mine. With the tail in your right hand, wrap around your open hand, wrap around your 2 fingers, then hold with your pinky, and then hold with your thumb. Pull up a loop with your hook and chain 1. From here we'll need to chain 1, and then we'll start putting puff stitches in our magic loop. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up a loop. That's 3 total times. Then yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook. That first puff is always a little tricky for me, but just make sure you keep your tension somewhat loose throughout this project. Then after your puff, chain 1. We're going to put 6 puffs into our magic ring. So this is my second yarn over, pull up a loop, and here's my third. Yarn over, pull through all the loops on your hook, followed with a chain 1. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up a loop. This is puff number 3. Pull through, keeping that tension loose, followed with a chain 1. And here comes another puff stitch. This will be number 4. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through. Here's number 5. And as you go, you'll definitely get faster at these, but take your time to make sure they're neat and consistent. And here comes number 6. And make sure you follow this one with a chain 1. At this point, we'll pull our loop up, and we're going to want to close that ring. Just hold the tail and pull tightly. That magic ring will make sure that we don't have any gaps in the middle of our coaster. So now we're going to put our hook back in, and we want to join in the top of the first puff stitch, right in that stitch above the puff stitch. So just insert under both of those loops, yarn over, and pull through all loops on your hook for a slip stitch. And that's the end of round 1. To begin round 2, we'll slip stitch in the chain space after where we joined, and then chain 1. Here's where we'll start our increases. So we're going to put a puff stitch in that same space. There's 2 and 3. We're going to chain 2 here, 1 and 2, and place another puff stitch in this same space. So anytime you have to increase in this pattern, this is what it looks like. Puff stitch, chain 2, and another puff stitch in the same space. And that's what it'll look like, just a little bigger of a space between your puff stitches. And we're going to place increases in each space around. So make sure you follow that puff stitch with a chain 1. And then in the next space, we're going to increase again. So remember, that's puff stitch, chain 2, and another puff stitch in that space, followed by a chain. In the next space here, we've got a puff stitch, 1 2, 3, yarn over, pull through all, chain 2, and another puff stitch in that space. And we're going to repeat that for each space around. So just a few more here. Puff stitch, chain 2, and another puff stitch. Two more spaces to go. Puff stitch here, chain 2, and another puff stitch in that space. And then in our last space, which might be a little tricky to find, but it's there, we're going to do a puff stitch, 2, oh, sorry about that. There's 2, and 3, pull through, chain 2, another puff stitch in that space, 2, and 3. Follow it with a chain and join in the top of the first puff stitch of the round. Make sure you're getting under both of those loops. Yarn over and pull through for a slip stitch. And this is what it looks like after round 2. So this is a good time to go ahead and weave in that first end. Sometimes I leave it for the end, but I'll show you guys how I like to weave in that end because I do it a little bit special for these types of projects. So just go ahead and thread your tapestry needle, pull that loop very close and taut so there's no hole, and then I'll just pick up a couple strands on the back of my puff stitches at the back of my work. So I'll work in this direction under several puff stitches just to make sure that line is secure. So you can see I'm just picking up a couple loops on the back of the puff stitches, and then I'll work in the opposite direction, and this is what will help lock in my end so I don't have to worry about it coming loose later. So I'll just do a few more here just to make sure it's secure, and then I'll cut right at the base of my tail, and then I can continue on. Here at round 3, we're going to start by slip stitching into the next chain 2 space, and we're going to put an increase here. So we start with a chain 1, puff stitch goes here, 2, 3, yarn over, pull through, chain 2, and another puff stitch here. 1, 2, 3, pull through, chain 1. Now in this next space, we're just going to put one puff stitch by itself. There's 1, 2, and 3, and follow that with a chain. Now we're back at an increase, so we'll place an increase here. Remember, that's a puff stitch, chain 2, and another puff stitch in that same space. Chain 1, and a puff stitch in the following space, followed by a chain 1. We're back at an increase, so we'll put an increase here. So that's a puff stitch, chain 2, and a puff stitch, 2, 3, oh, there we go, chain 1, single puff stitch in the next chain 1 space, followed by a chain 1, increase in the next chain 2 space. Now as you continue to make this project, you'll get really good at being able to spot the chain 2 space, but if you need to, if you're a beginner, you can always use stitch markers to mark those chain 2 spaces so you always know where your increases go. But essentially, we're just going to continue placing increases in our increases, placing single puff stitches in each chain 1 space, and that's how we'll grow our coaster, just continuing to increase evenly in this way. So here I've got an increase. I'm placing my second puff stitch, always followed by a chain 1, single puff stitch in the next chain 1 space, followed by a chain 1, increase in the increase, so increasing in that chain 2 space, followed by a chain 2, another puff stitch in that same space, and then we've got one more puff stitch going in the chain 1 space. So we're going to continue in this way until we have 6 total rounds, finishing up with a slip stitch join in the top of the first puff stitch of the round under both of those loops. Insert, yarn over, and pull through. And we're just going to keep working until we have 6 total rounds. So I'm going to go ahead and speed things up a bit. So here we are at the end of round 6. I'm just finishing up with my slip stitch, and I'm done with my puff stitches now. And you could technically be done, but we do have a couple more steps to go. To make this look like all of our other coasters, we'll want to add this really pretty single crochet border, as well as our little loop. And that'll allow us to hang it if we want to. To start our border, which is round 7, we'll begin with a chain 1, and we're going to single crochet in the same place that we joined. And then for our chain 2 space, we're going to place 2 single crochets in there. So there's 1 and 2. Single crochet in the puff stitch, right in the top of it, and then single crochet in the chain 1 space. Single in the puff stitch, single in the space. And we're going to do that all the way around, and the only difference is that we're going to place 2 single crochets in each chain 2 space. So single in the chain 1 space, single in the puff stitch, single in the chain 1 space, single in the puff stitch. Now we're at a chain 2 space. We'll place 2 single crochets there. Keep going, meet me at the end. I'll show you how to join, and then we'll do our loop. I'm here at the end of my round. I just have one more single crochet to put in that chain space, and then I'm going to slip stitch join in the first single crochet of my round. I'm going to tighten down so you can really see exactly what I'm doing. Just find that first single crochet of the round right between my thumbs here. Insert under both loops, yarn over, and pull through for the slip stitch. Now we're going to make the loop right from here. We're going to start by chaining 7. Here's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. We're going to flip our work over and slip stitch in the same place as our join. Insert, yarn over, and pull through all the loops on your hook. And then we're going to follow that with a chain 1 and flip our work again so we're looking at the right side. Now we have our loop, and we're going to place 15 single crochets into that loop. Here's 2, 3, 4, and 5. There's 6 and 7. At this part, I like to kind of tighten down my single crochets. I just push them down the loop to make space for the rest of them. So here's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and one more makes 15, just to fill up that loop so it's nice and pretty. Now we'll grab our scissors, cut a nice long tail, and we'll weave in this end with the invisible join. So grab your tapestry needle, pull that loop up and out, thread your tapestry needle, and now we want to find the second single crochet away from the loop. Here's 1 and 2. Insert under both loops of that stitch, then insert under the back loop of the last single crochet from the loop. Pull through and you've got a nice even join, and then we're just going to thread our tail through a few stitches on the back of our work. I like to pull it nice and taut just so that it's secure. Sorry it went off screen here, but I'm just threading that end, nothing special. I'm gonna cut at the base of my tail. And now my Hexi Puff Coaster is all done. Look how cute she is. At this point, the only thing left to do is use it really. If you want to, you can steam block it lightly so it lays nice and flat. But you can hang it, you can use these as coasters, you can use them as trivets, you can really do whatever you like. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me for this tutorial, and you can find this and other free patterns on my blog, TLYCblog.com, and you can find paid PDF printable versions of these patterns on my website, tlyarncrafts.com. Thanks again so much for joining me, and I'll see y'all next time.